lobby. Let's all go to the lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It Slays podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not-so-humble host, Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we're going to be reviewing No One Will Save You, which was released September 22nd, 2023, on Hulu in the States, or Disney Plus if you're a Canadian like us. Now, Rowan, I actually don't really know this about you, I don't think. Are you a big fan of UFOs, aliens in general? Are you a believer? And based on that, were you looking forward to No One Will Save You?
You know how you are obsessed with dinosaurs since you were a kid?
Yeah.
I have been obsessed with UFOs since I was a kid. I was convinced for like 10 years of my childhood that I was going to be a ufologist as a profession. And I used to like subscribe to paranormal magazines and all that kind of stuff. Oh, geez.
Okay.
So
I kind of love that for you, though, yeah.
Yeah, so this is kind of, UFO films or anything like that are like my weak spot. Obviously, I've talked about it. I'm like watching the X-Files right now, so I believe the truth is out there.
Mm.
And as for this film, yeah, I was pretty excited. I am a fairly big fan of Brian Duffield. Obviously, because The Babysitter is like he wrote that, and that's one of my favorite horror movies that has ever come to streaming since like the creation of Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also a big fan of Love and Monsters as well. So I was super excited to hear he had something else in the pipe. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I've been like obsessed with UFOs or whatnot. There was periods at which, a video would blow up that had kind of grabbed my attention. And I definitely like some of the earlier movies, like Signs. I like absolutely loved when it came out.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm missing a couple of like classics that people will mention, like, I don't know, like A Fire in the Sky or something like that. Like, I haven't seen that. But yeah, I mean, I'm a believer as well. I mean, the universe is too big. There has to be something else out there. As for this movie, I kind of gave it away a little bit on the last episode, but I've been looking forward to this as well. It kind of came out of nowhere for me. I haven't heard anything about it until it just dropped on Hulu. And all of a sudden, it was just all these prominent voices in the horror sphere just kind of started hyping it up on Twitter and whatnot. Like, I saw multiple podcast hosts, lots of horror writers and directors, Guillermo del Toro, I think even Stephen King.
I saw it.
Came out in support of this movie. So, I mean, it was just kind of building over the weekend, and we had plans to record it, but just I've been busy. We had a couple of episodes to record ourselves, so we're just getting around to it now. So yeah, when I threw it on this afternoon, I was very much looking forward to checking it out. So did GDT and Stephen King steer us wrong? Well, before we get into that, let's throw it on over to the trailer. What you just heard is from No One Will Save You, written and directed by Brian Duffield, and the story is as follows. Bryn, an anxiety-ridden young woman, finds solace within the walls of her home until she's awakened one night by intruders from another world. Now, here on Now Slaying, we like to keep things relatively spoiler-free up front before getting into the more in-depth, spoiler-filled discussion. So, Rowan, what are your spoiler-free thoughts on No One Will Save You?
I mean, this one's a hard one, eh? This is probably the hardest spoiler-free one we've ever done. Simply,
I would keep the one little, interesting conceit about this movie out of this section. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that I figured I wouldn't say anything about that, so you'll have to wait and watch the movie and then listen to our spoiler section. But I thought this was like it banged at a pretty good pace. It's not a very long movie. It's only like an hour and 20. Is it like maybe that?
Yeah, I feel like it might get to 90, but that's probably including the credits and everything. So yeah, it's probably closer to like an hour 20, hour 25.
And this is like, we say time and time again when we get like something, slim like this, where it's like, this is the key for horror, really. It's just like there's a certain kind of horror that, especially when you're getting into like kind of small, like enclosed spaces, anything like that.
Yeah, like home invasion.
There's only,
yeah.
Like you need it to be like short and sweet and just give you your punches. And yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone I know is talking about this. Like guys at work that don't watch movies at all, like everyone is watching this. I worked the last 2 days, and both nights, this has been on the TV twice, both nights, from guys going to watch it.
Yeah, I just got back from grabbing coffee with a friend, and she mentioned that she was probably about 30 minutes into this movie and was planning on finishing it up later this evening. So yeah, it's definitely just hitting general people that don't even watch horror all the time.
Yeah, which, I mean, I guess in Canada, it's good for them because this did actually go to Disney Plus, which was the scare with these, really, because the minute we see Hulu, I know I'm always like, all right, well, we're not going to see it on Disney for like 6 months or something. Sometimes we won't even get it. This could be a whole Hellraiser situation. But yeah, like I think it's really benefiting them to make sure everyone can see this. And like you said, I mean, I know the trailers for this have been playing on cable also. We have cable at work, like sports shows, stuff like that. Like they did market this pretty well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's definitely, I think it's safe to say in the spoiler-free section, like you said, it's a home invasion movie. And they pretty much in the marketing give away the culprits in it.
Yeah, I think it's probably safe to say that it's, an alien or a gray. I think it's fair to say that.
We don't, we didn't just decide to start the episode about UFOs because we thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be a little bit strange. I figured everybody going into this movie knows that it's a UFO invasion movie to some degree.
Yeah, I just thought it's an interesting subject that hasn't really been done overly well in the past, especially when we're mixing like a horror, like we said, a home invasion in this. There's really only one other movie that I can think like this, which is Extraterrestrial, that came out a couple of years ago, which I think is equally as fun, but maybe not as clean cut as this one. A little more indie.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, that one's pretty fun. But I will say, like, overall, the thing that really impressed me with this is just the sound design in general, because it's really hard with any kind of home invasion movie. Sound design is everything, because you're building scares on like darkness and a lot of like, things that are going on beside or behind your lead, like out of focus. And this like really excels in that area. I don't know how you watch it. I watch this like with headphones on.
Yeah, I just watched it on TV with my soundbar, which it's a cheaper soundbar. I definitely need to invest in a better setup. I thought overall, in a lot of respects, the sound design was pretty good. I mean, it's definitely the type of thing where, it kind of focuses it on like creaking floorboards or like, the pattering of feet across the floor, or, some of the bigger sci-fi moments have like interesting sound design to them. What I will say is like some of the vocal work, I think, on Caitlin Dever, like, it felt a little bit mismatched to me. Like sometimes it was just too loud compared to the action that was going on. And then also I kind of noticed a lot of moments of what I believe to be ADR. Like after the fact, they just got her to like add a bunch of grunts and stuff. There was actually one moment that involved kind of a TV flickering. And I thought that the noise we were hearing was coming from the TV, but it was actually coming from our heroine kind of struggling a little bit. And it just felt really off to me. So I think a lot of like the horror sound design and a lot of the kind of sci-fi aspects, I think it worked, but a lot of the vocal performances like didn't do much for me, is what I'll say.
What was your like thoughts on the actual just like kind of, you know, this mixture of like a heavy like sci-fi home invasion?
Yeah, I think overall like it worked pretty well for me. I think the creature design is pretty good. You know, despite seeing a lot of online criticism kind of saying the opposite, I do think they looked pretty good to me. Like I don't understand. Like like grays have a certain look to them, and I think this film achieved that. I don't know. It didn't take me out of it. I think Caitlin Dever is good. I think she's basically good in everything. I wish she was our Ellie in The Last of Us, because I just think she would have absolutely killed that role. Not that Bella Ramsey isn't, but it's just she was my main choice, so I've always been a fan of hers. And yeah, I think the cinematography, I think especially in kind of the first half of the film where it's a little bit stripped back and kind of has less going on from an action and VFX standpoint, I really liked it. I thought it was very cleverly framed. Definitely doing so to keep the tension up, for sure. Like, they made a lot with a little space. Some kind of, I don't know if negative might be too strong of a word, but it's definitely one of those movies that you'd call like horror with a heart. You know,
Yeah.
The movie definitely does get a little sentimental at times, and I didn't find it to kind of veer too far. Like, it wasn't cloyingly melodramatic for me, and kind of the one strong emotional beat that I think the movie is kind of rallying towards, it did really work for me. I did feel like, okay, I'm getting what I'm supposed to feel from this beat. What I'll say is the core conceit of the movie, I did know what it was going in, and that's why we're kind of talking around it, because to me, I did find it a little distracting. I don't know if you knew about that going in, but it was like I was hyper aware of it, and it took a long time for me to kind of get over that little aspect of the movie. And yeah, what else are some little...
Yeah, I was gonna say I also knew kind of the conceit of the movie. I didn't find it bug me too much. I thought it
Okay.
worked out pretty well, just because it's not like commonly used.
Yeah, it's definitely a choice, and that's
Yeah.
the thing. I think if you know about it going in, you might wind up being like me, where you're hyper aware of it, and maybe it's a little bit annoying, or for you, maybe it's just like it's kind of what differentiates it to a certain degree, and you actually like it.
I think you'll almost benefit. Like I do think you would benefit from coming into it not knowing. Like
I think so too.
I think
And
it
I
would
asked
be
my-
a better
I asked my-
surprise.
Yeah, I asked my friend if she'd noticed kind of what we're talking around here, and she had no idea what I was talking about. Like, I was like, oh, I didn't want to spoil what it was, but I was kind of talking around, and she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, do you mean that there's aliens in the movie? Or, you know, I was like, no, not that. There's something else, you know? But yeah, what do you think of the score? The score was probably, I'd say, my biggest negative of the movie. What do you think of it?
I can't really comment on it because I didn't like overly notice it, because I did find like a lot of when it kicked in kind of with like the heavy sci-fi stuff, like they kind of mixed it in with the sound design of the sound effects for like the creatures or the ship or whatever. Like I said, I did like the sounds they use, but I don't know if I necessarily like them like intermingled in the score.
It was something that I didn't really find that it did a lot for me. Outside of the one piece of licensed music, I did like that. I felt that it was really lacking like a key melody or style to kind of tie it all together. Like it was really heavily sci-fi at times. And then it was like discount Hans Zimmer at times. Then it was like a period drama at times. And overall, just kind of felt a little confused. Like I wish it picked a lane, and for a lot of it wasn't even horror at all. It was more so sci-fi than horror. So it was just something that I was kind of like, I think a better score could have helped elevate some of this. And my other biggest issue is I think the movie is over-ended. I think there are two natural endpoints before the ending, and I'm not saying the ending's bad. It's just I think you probably could have tweaked or cut out one of those other endings. It definitely felt like, okay, yeah, great. This was an excellent point to end the movie. It seems like it's ending, and then it keeps going. And then it does it again, and I'm like, okay, that wasn't as good as the other one to me, but this, okay, it's still decent. And then it goes again, and then I'm like, okay, this might be stronger than the other one, but it's still like, you know, not as satisfying. So it doesn't feel long. It just felt like I thought I was at the end of the movie multiple times, I guess, like within the third act, overall.
the funny thing is I know like exactly the beats you're talking about.
Yeah. And we'll definitely get into it.
Yeah. Which, like, I don't know if I overly had a huge issue with it. I think in the spoiler section will be a little more interesting, because I know you said, like, you were talking about the first half, like, you really enjoy, which I also really enjoy, but I actually really enjoyed the second half, which I think is
good.
like, I think is like the sci-fi kid coming out in me. So
yeah, there were some parts of this movie that reminded me of like early J.J. Abrams, like a lot of lens flares, a lot of almost like the magic of sci-fi and mysticism and whatnot. It like there were shades of Super 8 in this that I kind of wasn't expecting, and you know, and then it also had a little bit more horror than that at times. So yeah, overall, you know, I pretty much enjoyed it. I think it's something that I would recommend. I like to recommend like little movies like this, and you know, because even if it winds up not being your thing, and it is doing something interesting, it's only 90 minutes, and most people can just throw it on right now in the comfort of their own home. What about you, Rowan? Is this something you'd recommend?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I mean, obviously, by me talking about it a bit, I enjoyed myself with it. I'll be honest, I kind of wish this was a theater release, just because.
I'm with you. Yeah,
I think
it would have done really well.
Fantastic.
This definitely would have had like a 10 Cloverfield Lane type of thing where, you know, there's a lot of moments for the audience to react.
Yeah,
and sadly, with me just sitting on my couch, there wasn't much of a reaction, you know?
Yeah, so. Well, and like you said, I think with like if they knew it was going to the theater, it might have encouraged them to beef up the score a bit, like really have it knock in the theater. And like I just think about like, you know, the kind of success of like, you know, Nope in the present past, and just how like, yeah, like, you know, you kind of forget because we don't get them that often that, like, UFO movies can just bump.
And that's the thing. I think I wanted something more akin to Nope with this. Like, obviously, Nope is doing similar things where it's, like, kind of a bit of a genre mix-up.
Yeah.
But with Nope, I think the scores for all the different genres really worked, and they felt really unique and very, like, you know, perfectly fit for the movie. This one was like, I understand what they were going for, but none of them were really like an earworm or anything for me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So that's a recommendation from both of us. You know, it doesn't happen often, but it did with this one. And with that, I think it's time we cut to the spoiler discussion for No One Will Save You. We are now in the spoiler discussion for No One Will Save You, so if you've not seen No One Will Save You, it's time to tune out and come back once you've seen the movie, or keep listening if you simply don't care. So Rowan, we've been talking around a very big conceit of this movie. I think it's probably time to get into it, and I'm curious if it worked for you or not.
Yeah, so I thought the conceit that it was just kids dressed up as aliens, and it's all fake. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's Nope. That's Nope when the Greys appear. Oh.
Yeah, so well, we shouldn't say zero dialogue.
Not zero, but literally probably like 3 or 4 lines overall.
Yeah, and really the lines that are said like are kind of almost like under the breath, or like while Bryn is taking a breath.
Yeah, like there's lines of like, I think there's the postal worker. He shoots his shot at like the post office box early on. He says something, I can't remember what. It's like, oh, great shot or something under his breath or something, like
real,
you know, and then
missed opportunity for him to yell Kobe, but that's okay.
Could have, yeah. So there was like that. I think there was like some mouth words while Bryn was dancing to music that I did hear, I think, getting picked up on the mic a little bit. But it was like, once again, it's very, very subdued. And that was the thing for me. It was like, I knew that coming into the movie. So I was like hyper aware of like, there's a moment in the movie where there is a line of dialogue. So I was just sitting there kind of waiting for that. But also it was just like, I felt like the grunts and groans and everything were mixed so high that it was like they were trying to fill the silence with grunts and groans and sniffles and coughs and everything, that it was just like, it was almost like ASMR-y to a little degree.
Well, this is like kind of my my horror pet peeve too, because I'm the whole time I'm just thinking, I'm like, you know, if there's aliens chasing me in my house and I'm like hiding behind something, I'm like, well, of course they're going to fucking find you if you're fucking breathing that loud and you're like, I was like, you're so loud, like, geez.
I guess they'd be even more likely to find you if you were like, oh, I gotta hide, I gotta get out of here quick,
What?
or oh fuck, they're coming in, like, which that was the sort of vibe I was expecting. I was expecting a little bit of an internal monologue, but I guess like that's the thing. Movies have us so programmed now that it's like people can't just be quiet. You have to always be talking to yourself. So I don't know if it's more awkward that she's quiet the entire time, or if it's just literally like, well, it's kind of awkward that we're all trained to have, Ryan Reynolds cracking jokes every 30 seconds, if he's by himself on screen. I don't know. It was just something I was hyper aware of while watching the movie. And there were so many moments to me that I felt like it wasn't organically captured in the scene. It was just a distraction to me a lot of the time. The worst offender of it in the movie to me is the police station scene, where she runs into Maud's parents and they just like all awkwardly like look at one another, and then the mom spits on her, which it was just like somebody would have said something in that scene, even if it was just like one word or two words, like somebody would have. So the fact that it lingered so long on like this awkward stares and like the awkwardness of it, which there would be, it was just like it kind of felt really goofy to me instead of like an emotionally, upsetting moment, which obviously, Bryn gets completely overwhelmed at that point, where I found it like a little, it's just kind of cheesy, this moment. It didn't really work for me.
Well, and see, I found with that scene, like they kind of used it to be like, see, like you think someone's going to talk. Cause like right after Maud's mom spits on her, like we think the dad is about to say something, and then he kind of just sighs and walks out.
Yeah, I think it's a moment where just the movie's being a little bit too cute. Like, I think at that point you probably understand that there's not going to be much dialogue in this movie, even if you don't know about it coming in. And it was just like, it felt like the movie was winking at me a little bit too much. Like, it was just something that kind of took me out of it. But what I will say is that Caitlin Dever's one line that she repeats, kind of a moment later, kind of under her breath, I think was the strongest moment of the movie for me, where it really all came together there. Like the sci-fi, the horror, the emotional beats it was going for. Like it really worked for me. It was something that I didn't expect that it was going to work. And yeah, it just kind of tugged at the heartstrings in like the perfect way that I was like, yeah, this sentimental beat works for me. And I also kind of like the payoff of it, where they used it as like, kind of like an empowering moment for her to rip out that parasite or whatever that was, slithering down her throat and kind of rip her out of this dream world, right? That's almost like this heavenly afterlife scenario, right? That was also a bit of a payoff because, like, you could tell, like, the Greys were kind of examining a lot of her personal belongings and a lot of the photographs and, her notes and all that stuff. That it was like, oh, it's interesting that they can kind of get that from, basically your surroundings kind of influence the little, like, afterlife or the little, like, dream area that you get. Like, that was pretty neat, I thought.
Yeah, well, and that was all really a surprise for me because, obviously, like I said, with the marketing, this, like, I knew it was like kind of home invasion-y. It was kind of, like UFOs, aliens, but it definitely takes a turn into like this Lovecraftian area that I wasn't expecting at all. And then like when the movie ended, I thought it was funny because I kind of noted, I was like, this might be one of the better Lovecraftian movies ever made, because no one ever makes them properly.
No, it definitely gets cosmic at the end, like for sure. Like literally when she's up in the spaceship and you're seeing the galaxies in their eyes, and when she drops down out of the spaceship, she's seeing something that we don't see, right? It's almost like harkening back to like those scenes of people sitting in theaters and seeing like all the colors and whatnot flash across her eyes, but she's just seeing something in the sky essentially that we don't see, right? That like, yeah, it definitely does that. And then also the ultimate ending where everybody in her town is an alien, and she has felt alien, obviously, for alienated and an outsider in the beginning of the movie, but now since they're all aliens, she finally fits in. Was like, okay, it's a cute little note. I mean, she doesn't go completely mad, so it's not like perfect Lovecraft, but it is like a weird ending for sure. It felt like fitting for what they were going for. I just kind of wish that it ended on a more stronger emotional note for me, like that where she says, "I'm sorry, Maud," and like she rips it out of her, and she kind of like has that moment where it seems like she won, but she's like emotionally devastated, was a stronger beat for me. It's a more of a downbeat, obviously. But it was just kind of like, I felt like the movie was just about the end, and then it kept going and kept going and kept going.
I thought it was kind of funny because I did feel kind of the same way, because I kept thinking, I'm like, we're so trained to just as horror watchers, we're like, man, this needs to end on the worst note ever for it to really be good. But I will say I'm a little disappointed in the, I guess now that it's been out and people have been talking about it, and, you know, even Brian Duffield has, like, been talking about the ending, which, does no one learn? Like, did Kubrick did this the best, right? Like, I'm not ever telling you what the movie is, what it's about, figure it out. Because obviously he's confirmed, right, that this ending is, you know, she gets her happy ending and the aliens feel bad for her. And so it's like they're helping her make her town, like, perfect for her. And, you know, he talks about, like, you know, he's basing this off, like, you know, like Catholic beliefs and redemption and salvation and all this kind of stuff, where I was a little disappointed because, like, when I finished it, I had kind of thought, like, oh, I didn't even look at it as a positive ending, because I was like, oh, there's probably a good chance, like, she is also invaded by, like, this, like,
you
body
were thinking that this was
snatcher.
like you were thinking this was like a dream scenario type of thing where it's like, oh, this is just like another version of the what's called the mod
Yeah.
area, like, you know, you were just thinking like
Either
this is
the-
another
either
like
the
quote
mod
unquote like
area-
afterlife type thing. You know?
Either that, or I was like, this is literally like, she's no different than these guys. Like, she's got it in her throat, and these aliens just have like some weird thing going on.
Oh, I knew it wasn't in her throat just because you could see it like so apparently, and everybody else like the you know, it lingers on it, you know. And she also kills the version of herself. Yeah.
I kept waiting because I was like, oh, they're gonna show us like a close up, and it'll be like a, is it or isn't it, like,
Oh yeah.
in there. So, but you know
Yeah,
what? That's all right.
I think it's conceptually like a cute thing, like, you know, feeling like an alien, feeling, you know, that you never quite fit in. And then the movie ends with essentially them seeing her trauma, seeing her life, seeing how strong of a fighter she is, and basically says, you know what, well, we won't do this to you, not you. And then essentially, you know, the rest of the community is actually behaving like a community and neighborly towards her, and then she finally fits in. It was just, I don't know, it was probably my least favorite of the three endings. The other one was just literally like when she was floating up there and they see everything, there's like a really long shot of like all the aliens kind of lingering over her and like the darkness in their eyes and stuff. And then I was like, you could have literally just ended it with them leaning over her, or it's just like the white tunnel of her getting dropped back to earth or something, right? You didn't have to see absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Another kind of qualm with the movie that we can discuss in the spoiler section is just, I don't know if I was a big fan of the multiple alien species.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, so for me it was just like there was something so nice and simple when it was just a gray or a couple of grays that I really liked, and then when you got the one he was like the grabber, you know, with the big hands, I was like, okay, we're starting to get a little bit too silly here now. And then all of a sudden it's like the creatures from A Quiet Place are essentially in the movie, and I'm like, okay, now I don't really like this. And then there's like an even bigger like queen one at one point. There's just like, all right, never mind. It kind of jumped the shark a little bit for me. It didn't like ruin it for me. It's just I really like just having a movie that was a simple gray or two in your home. I was just like, oh, this is simple. This is cool. She could have defeated them, escaped, and then got abducted. I would have been completely fine with that. It was just kind of the need to kind of keep ratcheting up the stakes through making different aliens just didn't really work for me. I think that was kind of like maybe you could have cut out one of those action sequences and got her abducted a little bit quicker. And I think the movie would have been slightly stronger for me because of it. Did you like the different aliens or?
So I like the like giant one at the end. I was like, oh yeah, like that worked for me. I was fine with that. I didn't overly like. I called him like the scrappy dog one that was like little and it was kind of like feral. I think it was like
with the big hands, the big
she basically like speared into the closet or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that one was like super silly because I was like, oh, this one's like literally acting like a dog or so, like just something like an animal. Where I guess it kind of threw me off because at first I wasn't really thinking alien invasion. So at first I was like, okay, so I had assumed that maybe she killed like a kid alien, and I was like, okay, so now this is like the parents, And then
Gotcha.
I was
Okay.
like, this is like some weird like dog version of like they have a dog alien or something.
All right, I didn't get the family vibes, but for whatever reason, for me right away, I was like, yeah, this looks like a gray, and I was like, okay, its head is so big that it has like telekinetic powers and all this stuff. I was like, sure, all right, whatever, I can get down with this. I did really like how desperate and how kind of surprising the kill was of the first one, like where she kind of grabbed the tower and I never even noticed she was getting dragged across the floor and then into the air, and then she kind of spins and gets him right in the head.
Yeah.
It was a really strong moment. Like that was kind of what I would say probably the culmination of the first third, and that to me was probably the strongest part of the movie. It almost felt like just a really strong short film for the first probably 25 30 minutes or so. And I mean, I could just literally see like a short film ending with her wandering outside thinking that she survived and got away from it, and then she just gets abducted, and then it just ends right then and there, right? But it was just I thought that was really effective.
Yeah, I thought that was super effective. I really liked the scene where I was also a sucker for it, like with Nope and stuff, and any of these sci-fi movies, but kind of like when we have the UFOs like entering the atmosphere, very Independence Day.
Yeah.
And I just love that. Like I love anything where it's like the clouds are breaking and you just see all the UFOs. And I
will say the VFX there wasn't the strongest. Like I think
no,
it was a little bit better
it wasn't
when it was
crazy,
just the grays,
but
yeah.
I'm all for it with sci-fi. Yeah. One of the things to get used to as a sci-fi kid are just terrible VFX. So
of course, yeah.
I can look past it. And I did like a lot of stuff with like the lights from the UFOs, like the scene
yeah.
I really enjoyed like the scene with the with like the townsperson that's like dragging her, and then like half his body gets caught in the light and it just snaps
that was really
back.
good. Yeah.
And I was just like, this is everything I want in this kind of movie.
Yeah, I really liked the red light. The red light one.
That was
really
the next
liked.
one I was gonna say. Yeah,
some real effective wire work there. Like probably some sets I would assume to just build her on the floor and pass it off as the ceiling, but it was just, I don't know, it was so good. I really liked the little parasite or whatever it was kind of floating towards her. It was like so intrusive, so like disgusting, and the fact that they actually like go there and let it actually get inside of her, and she has that whole like dream sequence or whatever it is. It was just it was really unique. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a very effective sequence. I also liked how a lot of like the tractor beams or whatever you want to call them were coming in like sideways into the house, like in through the doors and windows and stuff. I haven't really seen that too much, like horizontally. Like usually it's just like something breaks the roof, right? And it just comes down that way, right? But it was really cool. I thought for sure at some point, like, and maybe the movie just didn't have a budget for this, I thought she was going to get grabbed with a tractor beam right through the window, like flying. Like,
100%.
Just like sucked right out of the house,
I thought the scene with like the red one that we were talking about too, like I thought that was probably, for me, I found like one of the stronger parts of the sound design, where the sound was like echoing, but like wherever the beam was is like kind of where it seemed the sound was coming from, and it was like following her. It wasn't with her. And I was like, my mind was blown by then.
Yeah, that was a really good moment as well. Yeah, it's just a lot of it kind of really worked. I liked the aliens and how the sounds would like resonate across like their throats and stuff, like their whole body would kind of undulate, which it just makes it feel like it's very otherworldly. It wasn't like it didn't seem like a noise that was coming from like a vocal cords or a voice box. It was literally like resonating across their skin. Similarly, like how the big one, the one that you thought was a dog, or sorry, not the big one, but the one with the big arms that you were like, oh, this is the dog one, the brute or whatever. I was calling him the grabber. He just kind of walks into the tractor beam, and it's kind of like they have like control of gravity, or like they can exist in it that we can't. It was just like it walks through it like no problem, right? It doesn't even bother them.
Yeah.
That it's just like they just literally exist on almost like a different plane, and that's like same with the gray, like controlling the telekinesis and stuff too. It's just like, I don't know, it all worked together that it felt like a real well realized world of like the few aliens that were in it. It's just personally, I think I would have preferred if it was just a gray, and then maybe she defeated one or two or maybe even three, got out of the house, was really on her last legs, and then the big one appears, and right before, she kind of, gets ready. She's going to fight it, but she knows she's going to get destroyed by this big one, and that's when she gets sucked up, or something like that. Like, I just didn't really need her to go the full, I don't know, badass Ripley type thing, like I didn't need her killing 3 and 4 different variations of these things, I guess.
I needed it to end where basically she wins, and then you find out her next door neighbor is Alec Baldwin from Beetlejuice, and they get together and they build miniature towns for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, that'd be a really nice ending. Yeah. But with that, you got any other notes? Any other things you want to mention?
I think I've said anything. If I haven't said anything, I mean, just watch the fucking movie. I hope you didn't listen to this much of it and not watch it.
Yeah, I mean, if you've listened to this much, you could have already watched, like, I don't know, almost half the movie at this point. So if you're new to the podcast, our review rubric is nay, okay, yay, or slay. So, Rowan, what would you give No One Will Save You?
Colton, you can call me Jill. I'm going to give it a slay.
No way!
I am. Wow. So if this was like Letterboxd, it would probably be like a 4.5, but I can't.
Okay.
Like, I can't give it a yay because I really, really liked it. Like, it would be a slay in our scale.
Wow.
I really had a time with it. I can't say there's many movies that hold my interest the whole time where like something doesn't drop at least for like 10 seconds where I'm like, I don't know about this. And like this did do that, but like at the end of like where I kind of felt this lull, like 10 seconds later, I was like, oh no, never mind. I'm an idiot. And I just, like I said, oddly enough, like the second half when we really get into the sci-fi stuff, I was giddy.
Wow.
I was loving it so much. It just really, really worked for me. And it's almost unfair. If it almost should have been on a scale of like screams or something, like would you scream it or stream it? Because like I just, as a streamer, like I can't really think of anything probably since The Babysitter that I thought was like this strong in horror that just came to streaming and like nothing else, and especially just kind of released without like, like there was promotion on this, but it's not like we've been hearing about it for 6 months or a year or something.
No.
So yeah, I'm gonna do the Jill and just slay it. But what about you, Colton? What would you rate it?
Dude, I'm so happy that you liked it that much. It was weird. Rowan just watched this literally finish it minutes before we started recording. So I figured he was just like, oh, it's not my thing. I started a little bit earlier. I'll just finish it now or whatever. But yeah, I'm shocked. I'm glad that you enjoyed it so much. For me, I'm going to give it a yay. I think it's just a solid yay. I have a lot of little issues with it, as I've mentioned, maybe even just listening to me discuss it because so much of my spoiler-filled thoughts were detractors. You might think I was going to be a little bit harsher on it, but I don't know. I just really like a lot of what the movie's doing. I'm very supportive of a small little movie. I mean, it's kind of weird to call this smaller just because, it has a bunch of action set piece and probably a good VFX budget and all that stuff, but it's still mostly just one person in a house with creatures attacking, right? It's still largely just a home invasion thriller with sci-fi and horror aspects. So I really liked it. I really like Caitlin Dever. I think specifically the first 25, 30 minutes of the movie could just make for one hell of a great horror short. I wish the ultimate ending hit a little bit harder for me, and maybe they cut out one of the false endings or something. But yeah, overall, I like a lot of what this movie's doing. I'd recommend it. I think it's yay. Yeah, that's it for me. And if you made it this far and you're not following us on our socials, you can do so at It Slays Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, / or Letterboxd, Threads, Blue Sky. If there's a social media, we're probably there at It Slays Podcast, and we'd really appreciate if you gave us a follow. And if you want to help support the show financially, like our horror hounds Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Stephen, Joy, and Carvey, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams and get episodes of the main show 48 hours early, be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Rowan, time to discuss the playlist. You gonna put anything from this on it?
We'll have to see. Maybe we'll find out.
Maybe that one old-timey jam. Maybe throw that on there.
Old-timey jam.
Yeah.
Old-timey jams always make it on just because they're naturally creepy.
Yes.
But yeah, go to Spotify to the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media Colton mentioned just a second ago. Go to the bio. There's a Linktree link. Click on there, and you can get right to it. And we upload music from iconic horror movies we review, or horror movies we just love. That's licensed music, that's score. So go take a listen. I uploaded some stuff yesterday, probably upload some more stuff today. So go get your spooky music on, because it's spooky music season.
And next time on the show, peeling back the curtain a little bit, we haven't really discussed this, but I assume we're doing Saw X next, right?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. All right, I got to find a time to go see that this weekend. So, yeah, next time it'll be Saw X, Saw 10. I don't know. It's crazy that they're up to that now. And with that, I think that about wraps things up for this episode. So until next time, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And as long as you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.